to like be in trouble. Um, but we're already a swamp. We'll be fine. Um, like if the water raises, we'll be fine. Um, but we always have water here because we're like a big toilet bowl. Like, and a hurricane comes in, and that's like the flush. It like literally, we have a sandstone aquifer or limestone, or it's like coquina stone, which is this really compacted shell type rock. It's really porous. Um, so we have this gigantic aquifer that constantly gets recycled, and so we always have water in Florida. It's like a good benefit, and it's a good thing because we've had companies accidentally dump radioactive waste into the middle of our aquifer, and nothing happens because it gets, well, it's probably killing something, but not around us. Um, so it's interesting. I think Las Vegas may not exist like in 50 years unless they build some aquifer from like Alaska down to it, which, weird fact, President Nixon almost did that in the 70s.
Nixon did a lot of crazy things. Almost did a lot of crazy things.
This one I would have agreed with. Like some sort of major infrastructure project to bring in snow water from like the north. Sounds crazy, but we're in crazy times. Um, but yeah, Nixon, he was Nixon. Interesting character. He's one of my favorites. Not as like, oh, a great president, but as like a character. He's just so vengeful, and um, everyone counted him out, and then he like rose again to presidency out of nowhere,
I
and
think
all the evil stuff he did was so evil. It's like, how
if
could you do something like it's just fascinating?
if he would have actually successfully completed that project, and then his scam would have been called the Watergate. That would have been like iconic. That would have been that would have made sense. I mean, they call it Watergate. That I don't
Yep.
see. There's no water there. Why are you calling it Watergate?
Yeah, it's just some silly hotel. I don't even. That's a good question. Why is it, so? It's named after a hotel. Why is the hotel named that?
Like
I'm not sure.
Watergate.
Um, you know, I'll probably be looking into that. Hopefully, it's by a river, so it makes some type of sense. I don't know, um, but yeah, he was interesting. Like when he met his wife, she was a educated librarian, which at that time was like rare for like a woman to be educated, and I guess because of that, she didn't have a lot of suitors, but she didn't want Nixon. She didn't like him, and she was a very attractive lady. So he told her, because he would always just go to the USC, University of Southern California library, and I guess sort of stalk her when he was just like a junior lawyer. And he just told her like, "Yeah, you're gonna be my wife one day." And she was like, "Okay," like weirdo. And he sort of befriended her, and she didn't have a car or anything, and she was like dating like a boyfriend in another town. And Nixon told her like, "Oh, well, I'll drive you there and then pick you up because I'm going to be your husband. So you'll just get through
Same,
this,
same.
right?" And eventually, I guess she was like, "Well, got no one else, so I'm
Might
going to
as
pick
well.
this dude." And then he becomes president. Who knew?
I mean,
So it's just Nixon's such a he has like so many stories like that are just so unique and weird, right? Like I can see a lot of people doing that and then just getting rejected, but he somehow made it work. Like that's the weird part, right?
yeah, I think that was. I think it's the times. Like today, if you try to do something like that, I think you'll get cancelled on the. I mean,
Yeah, it's
good
modern times are very weird with that dynamic, right?
good luck finding a library and a woman in a library. Uh, yeah, the most
Oh,
impossible the most impossible part of the story was there was a public library which anyone could access. Think about it. Anyone can access American education. Can you like believe that thought? That woman, and she was educated woman.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the whole public library part. So in India, do they have any public libraries?
Lots of, lots of. I think capitalizing
Um,
on education is not looked in a very good light in India. Education is one of those things which is, since one of the founding fathers of our nation, the chairman of the drafting committee of our Constitution of India, Bhimrao Ambedkar, he valued education a lot, tremendously. So he made it a fundamental right, and like, he was very adamant on educating the masses, uh, and so he made sure in the structure of the constitution that whenever the foundation of this country is laid, education remains a priority area, and every government should aspire to educate as many people as possible. So, good quality education is a
that's really
it's a noble thing for Indians to be proud of. We don't
it.
discriminate.
It should be. Um, it's good it exists there like that because it used to be like that in America, but because education has gotten political, this is like a new development over in the 2000s. This is something that's like new, where attitudes have shifted for I think a variety of reasons. Where this sort of privatized attitude has come in. We've always had private schools, but this idea that you bring in competition to public schools and then those schools are owned by like billionaires that are then just like sucking up taxpayer money and like the public is was fine with that happening, which is the surprising part. But well, no one spoke up, but they also voted with their feet, meaning those things sort of failed in large part. Um, and the ones that did survived because they actually did fill a need that public schools weren't filling. But the whole that was their original intent, but then it got really toxic with money, and that's like the real danger sign I think is capitalizing with taxpayer money like that was just absurd. Now in Florida, they're giving kids vouchers to private schools, which I'm fine with. Like, um, but that would have never took place before 20 years ago, where the government funded kids to decide that may want to go to a private school that may be like Catholic or something. That would have never happened like 20 years ago because of the separation of church and state, which is in Florida sort of dwindled. Um, but all they're really doing is giving the parents of those students free tuition. They're not really taking kids away from the public schools. So the Republicans in this country really dislike. They really want to change. They don't dislike. They want to change education into a different model so that all the teachers aren't Democrats. That's their goal. So it has less to do with money and more to do with politics. If that makes any sense.
So, I, okay, I'm ashamed of this, but I was watching Ben Shapiro one day, and he was constantly rambling about how academia is left leaning and it is dominated by left. Do you agree with that stance? Where does it, like, what does that mean exactly? That
He's
academia
actually
is left leaning?
100% right. So, but what he's referring to is the university. So there's a clear distinction in America between the university and public high schools. Like we're two different things, and our cultures don't. It's they somewhat interact with like curriculum and objectives like graduation and like SAT tests, but you know, I don't really respect professors or what they do. I hate to unless they're doing like really cool research or something, then I really do that stuff. But I don't think most of them can teach. Um, and they are paid so much money that I feel like they hoarded their positions away from younger people, and now they're relying on severely underpaid adjunct professors. It's almost like slave labor. It's like bad. Um,
What is an
and
adjunct
they're very,
professor? What,
excuse me.
what is an adjunct professor?
So this is one of the new ripoffs, another new capitalization of education at the university level in America. So um, I don't think a lot of people know about this, especially outside the US. So when you go to a university, you think you're getting taught by university professors. One way they get around that and get around hiring like young professors that they then have to put into tenure is they hire someone called an adjunct professor, which is a professor just for one term. It's like a term contract that they pretty much renew with these people, and then then they pay um, the people, the adjunct professor, like maybe 5 grand a term, which in America, with our inflation at the moment, is considered very, very low pay. So I don't know how that's going to sound right now, like that anyone doesn't understand, like that's not a
Dollars.
big amount of money in America, because that could be a huge amount of money somewhere else. So I don't want like that to like sound obnoxious, but um, in America you can't. So that means if he taught the fall term, the summer term, and um, the spring term, the person would make 15 grand, and that's beneath the poverty line in America, which is 29 grand. So you're being taught by people that are essentially could qualify for welfare, food stamps, all this, but they do it. Like this is the big question I always have. Like, why are these people doing this? Like they have college educations. They can go be a high school teacher and be making like 6 times, like way more than that. Healthcare, benefits, all that good stuff. Why are they choosing to do this? And I think it's just out of the hope that they might get a position if someone retires, because they are lucrative positions, like these tenured positions. Um, or maybe they'll be found out, or they want the prestige of saying, I'm a college professor.
Hmm.
And so much, like America has so much of this where people like they put up an image that's completely untrue. Um, but for status, they'll say stuff like that, even though they might be going home and having a big block of government cheese that that's, if you're really poor in America, they give you a big block of American cheese.
Because they
So,
have so much of it lying around. Yeah, you told me
yes,
this last time.
yes. Um, so it's interesting. So, yeah, that's how the colleges have just made more and more money. Um, but in this, going back to your original question, so why is it so left leaning? Mainly because the students tend to be left leaning. Not all of them,
In teenage,
like,
yeah, mostly.
but yeah, like young people tend to be left leaning. But when I was in college, you had all sides, and I liked playing both sides, right? Because I like to be a jerk and argue, and it's fun too. But now it seems like the conservative voices are really just shut down, and the professors are scared for their jobs because they don't actually care. They only care about their money, their prestige, their retirement, which I think is still the core of the problem. Um, because the students will like demand people get fired for saying the wrong thing, and they'll do all these ridiculous like protests where the other side's not there, and there's no adult saying, hey, I get what you're saying, but you're crazy and you're sort of wrong, because I deal with this every day.
You're crazy and you're
um,
wrong.
well, if they're shouting at someone, that's not, you don't shout. But I have students that, this is more after the pandemic, that just sort of have a twisted view of reality and problems in our society, um, that I very politely play the other side, try to get them to critically think. And it seems in college that they're just scared to do that. I mean, if you're too mean, they will just shut down and not listen to you. If you do it in the right way, and you don't shove it back in their face, the students will critically think if they're bright. And the kids that are usually so upset about injustice are usually pretty bright. So they just have to critically think, you
Yeah,
know.
I guess the thing you mentioned about tenure and this adjunct professor, it sounds like gig economy of educators. Like, you it's not Uber. Like, it's college. US colleges are very expensive. Why am I getting a template? What are you cost cutting for?
Yeah, it's, if I find a documentary on PBS about this, where they actually follow around some of these professors, like one's living out her car, Like she's living in the parking lot of the school, and like students are passing her. If I had a adjunct professor, I would be in like the dean's office saying, "Where's a professor?" No offense to this person, but like this was like 20 grand this class, and you're paying the person like a tenth of my freaking tuition. Like, what's going on? Or a fourth of my tuition, and it just seems like no one's really doing that. And I think a lot of people, a lot of Americans, I'll say, a lot of
People.
Americans that are just going through college to get through it, get the certificate, and I don't think a lot of them have their eyes open to some of this stuff. But yeah, it's a gig economy. That's a really good example. It's a thing, and it's a way for the universities just to make more and more money. Um, and like they're not trending in the right direction at the moment. Universities in America, they're great. I love my experience. You can still get a great experience at one, but I've been very disappointed in leadership of a lot of these places that have just been too weak. I'm not calling for police to be called in with batons, but just give a counter argument and let like Jordan Peterson come and give a talk, right? Like who cares? You should be. I remember they had Nazis at Florida State, like straight up. They would bring in any speaker. Yeah, and the point was listen to these people because look how crazy they are, right?
Yeah,
And that actually sort of stops people. Like,
make fun of them.
yeah, yeah, but if you once you shut someone out, that gives them more people listening to them because then it's like, oh, they don't want you to hear this guy.
Oh, what's called? Steiner's effect. I think Steiner's effect. There was some effect where an attempt to censor something has a opposite effect and it creates more audience for that particular thing.
Yeah, that's right. I totally forgot about that term. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, very
We
good.
we study about that in media. Steiner's effect.
Yeah. So it seems like a lot of stuff's not getting like as canceled as much nowadays. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe like people in the media have smartened up to say, "Oh, when we do this stuff, they just get more popular."
Hey guys,
Um,
have you noticed our charts lately? Has anyone noticed the facts, the data of the last 10 years?
yeah, it's. I think American media is heading in an interesting direction. There's a lot of independent people right now that are getting. Um, I think they're going to eventually be the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean
Wherever how
Joe Rogan
like
is pretty much mainstream. Like you can't
oh he is yeah.
like he's pretty much mainstream. He's
So like these big companies, I don't know how they're going to survive outside of like showing some emergency.
yeah, I guess, and I was watching a lot of podcasts and interviews recently. I invested myself a lot in uh, America's current socio-economic and woke and liberal movements in order to understand what it is all about. And a lot of great insight actually comes from movie reviewing people, like reviewers or like whatever you want to call the critics of, where they will take a movie and they will give an a, they'll give the movie an objective view that okay from cinematography and this, and then the later half of the video they'll talk about how that movie has a socio-political or socio-economic impact on people, and that is when they'll dig deep into uh, a lot of the woke propaganda that movie creators have started putting in, a lot of virtue signaling. And ironically, Disney is the one producing all of it, which is like Disneyland is in Florida, and a lot of people are actually a lot of people who do these podcasts and YouTube things, they are saying, "Oh, I would shift to Florida," and some of them have actually shifted to Florida uh, because it is more accepting. Like, you'll not get yelled at in the nearest mall if you say that I don't like the latest Barbie movie. It's okay.
Interesting. It's definitely a thing. You ever heard of Chris Gore? He's a good voice, like that of a type of person you're talking about that critiques movies, and he's like political, but he doesn't intend to be. He's just critiquing all of the sort of crazy stuff they're trying to do right now at the moment. That I just think I don't know. Still trying to figure it out. Like, it just might be the writers are like my age now, and I went to college when all these theories were being like pumped on us, and I thought they were a little absurd, but I listened. And they have some points, but then to make movies out of them can be a little bit wacky. So I mean, so these people have like a lot of good um, messages, but yeah, like a good thing to understand about American cinema is it's always been propaganda.
Yeah,
Like
like first it was
the department,
military, then Department of Defense, then FBI, something, CIA, something
they
always.
they have been in it since the 1920s. Um, and then with World War II and war films, they got really intense. So there's always, you know, there's always an approved American message in every film, which makes me really ponder all of this new stuff going on. I'm like, what are they doing? But maybe that's their new message.
Yeah, but
Be more accepting. I guess
even
I don't
in
know.
that, when there was military propaganda in that, they did make some great movies. Saving Private Ryan is an amazing movie, not because of the virtue signaling and propaganda, but that iconic scene of the troops landing, that depiction of war, that 10 minutes of clip at the beginning of a movie, it is not iconic because of the social message that it wants to share. It is iconic because it is a great piece of art. I think that is where this dialogue needs to go. What you're producing is not a great piece of art. It is nonsense virtue signaling and holier than thou attitude, which is overloaded with Christian overtones about God and Satan.
I completely agree with the Christian statement. They are Christians all the way. They are Puritans. Like we're such a Puritan Protestant country, and we still like to call people's sin out. You're evil, burn them. It's so Christian. You're oh my god, that's a good comparison.
And like,
Yeah, they don't realize it, and they hate Christians. It's so funny, you know. Um,
so
yeah, I completely agree. But yeah, like you said, like there can be good movies and good propaganda at the same time. And Americans aren't stupid. They're catching, if the American has half a brain, they're catching the propaganda. Like, okay, but if it's a good flick, um, like Forrest Gump is even propaganda. Good flick. There's so many of them out there that I just think it's a lack of creativity. I don't know. I'm still wrapping my head around all this.
I think
You know,
companies don't
my
want
thoughts
to,
change every day.
they don't want to take a risk with it. Like how was the Barbie movie perceived by 17-year-old girls in the US?
You know, that's a good question. I'm going to ask that in my sociology classes because I haven't heard anyone talking about it yet. And the school's been in session for about a week, and um, no one's. They're more talking about Trump at the moment
Why?
because I have a very diverse school, and like half the students are Trump, the other half aren't. Um, and the other half are like very very liberal, so it's always interesting, right? Like when one person says something, the other people just like stare at them like they're from outer space. It's interesting. um so the people that really seemed to like it were people 20 to like 40 girls, so women. um they I knew they grew up with it, so like it seemed to be like younger women but not like teenage girls. It's interesting. Like I don't think teenage girls now have been, like they're on the phone. They're waiting for the TikTok movie to come out. Like it's I'm sure some 17-year-old girls like loved it, but it just seems like it's not the same as it. Like all the girls I know on Facebook that are like between 20 and 40 are all like they were all talking about it, posting silly pictures of them in like pink dresses going to the theater. But no one's been talking about it, at least at my high school. But maybe that it still could be a thing. I'm just not seeing it too, right? Um, but that's sort of interesting.
I would
A
say,
lot of people have seen Oppenheimer.
yeah,
Boys are
exactly.
talking about
That's what I was coming to. Like in India, it was like a full-on competition of Sigma male Chad masculinity, Oppenheimer versus feminine Barbie. So like if you're watching Oppenheimer first, you're a Sigma male Chad grind. But if you're going with your girlfriend to Barbie, then you're not a Sigma male. You're not a Chad.
Oh my god. That so happy you told me that. I'm gonna tell my students
So
that.
Barbie versus
That's so
Oppenheimer,
interesting.
it was huge in India. Like I would say the marketing department of both the movies did great. Oppenheimer was famous in India because Oppenheimer quoted the Bhagavad Gita in real life, and in the movie also there's a scene about it. So it did create some controversy here, but nothing major. I think in India, Oppenheimer is popular because there's a guy living so far away. He's a creator of some destructive power, and he's quoting one of our books from that too in
Yeah. So what was the controversy? Just that he said that like verse on film?
no. That is what we were proud of. It was depicted as if, like it was a sex scene. So Oppenheimer just finished having sex, and then he picked up that book. So the book Bhagavad Gita, it is it is a compilation of dialogues between the Prince Arjun, who's the protagonist of that movie, and our god Krishna, who's talking to the prince. So it's a compilation of dialogues between the two, and it's a very respected book, I would say.
Yeah, I'm vaguely aware of it. Like I've never read it, but I know its significance. I was just wondering what the controversy was, and that makes complete sense, right? Because
Nothing
yeah, he
major.
was having sex while reading it. So
It's nothing major. Some people were mentioning on Reddit that why is no one talking about this, and people replied because we have jobs.
and evangelical Christians would have been upset if that was the Bible. So
It's
like it's just a thing.
meh.
Um yeah, but I mean like the Chad and thing about Oppenheimer is very the Sigma male thing is fascinating to me, just this movement.
Yeah.
But the idea that if you're Sigma male, you go to see Oppenheimer first, because I didn't see that in America um, happening. It just seems like you go to both, right? And you might change outfits, right? That's what some people did over here. Like, oh, I'm gonna wear my hat to see Oppenheimer,
Oppenheimer.
and I'm gonna wear a pink shirt to go see
Barbie.
Barbie. And most people didn't do that. Like, I never seen Barbie. I only saw Oppenheimer because I guess I'm a Sigma male. But I just had no interest in seeing Barbie. Um, I'm good on that propaganda. But I loved Oppenheimer. It's just real fascinating that, like what you said with that, how that worked out in India. Yeah, they did very good marketing for both. They needed a hit real bad. They've been losing so much money, like billions and billions, that they finally figured it out. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I really liked Oppenheimer. That's
exactly.
probably been one of my favorite movies I've seen in a while.
It was amazing. Loved it, and like the part where you said that they finally figured it out. I mean, yeah. Turns out if you don't insult your audience, they will watch your movie. Big secret, right? Big marketing strategy. Come, I'll give you free advice. Big marketing advice for all the guys at Hollywood. Don't tell me I'm bad because I have a dick. Very simple. It's not that hard. Don't insult me as an audience. It's not that difficult. Try it. You guys have done it in the past.
Yeah, and they can just do that again anytime they want. It's I don't know. I'm still like again, my mind always changes on what's behind all this. Like, is it ESG or some like stock manipulation strategy? Like stocks in America have something called an environmental social governance score,
Yeah. ESG
and
score.
it's
Yeah.
basically like social credit for corporations.
How diverse your workforce is. How much are you doing for the
Yeah.
environment? Renewable
So
sources
it
or
might be
whatever.
this. It might be academia where they're producing the writers that then go to this. Um, it could be the CIA propaganda. I have no idea. Like my mind always changes. Right, like who's but like, or it could just be a weird consequence of the times, and like that's Occam's razor, right? Like the most obvious thing is just stupidity and people being people.
Don't attribute to malice what can be explained with sheer stupidity.
Yeah, so it could be that like but they're just losing so much money. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like people, it's not like anyone in America is going, "Oh, this is great stuff." You know, everyone here is like, "Ugh." So, like, even like super very liberal people are all not. No one went to see the Little Mermaid, right? Like, it's silly.
I recently saw the meme for Snow White, I think, and it was like this actress. Like, I know beauty is subjective, but it was like the actress, and the text said the main actress of the protagonist of the movie, and then there was the female who portrayed the witch, and the text said the witch whose mirror thinks that this one is more beautiful than her, and it it didn't make sense because clearly the witch was looking prettier. I don't know, maybe.
So yeah, the new Snow White, she's actually Puerto Rican, I believe, and they make it because I grew up around Puerto Ricans, great people. I love Puerto Ricans. They're great people. They really are. But yeah, the women, the Puerto Rican women, do the hair clips like that. So like if you notice, like she had like 15 white hair clips in her. That is a Hispanic American thing, female thing. So that was definitely virtue signaling to the Hispanic demographic in such a gross way. I thought like, and it's trying to also say, oh, this person is not white, even though she looks white to me. But it, yeah, it's and then the dwarfs weren't dwarfs; they're magical creatures now. They're just like it's almost like they want to lose money, right? Like here you have this like plot, this great little kid story. Parents are going to go take their kids to see it. That's just so much money in America, and you're deciding to just tell them no and look at all that. It just blows my mind of how easy of a formula they have that they're deciding not to do the easy money, and they're just deciding to. That's why I just doubt Occam's razor sometimes, right? Like this doesn't make any sense.
I think
Like
like I just don't want them to next come out and say SpongeBob and Patrick are in a relationship. I don't. I just don't want to just.
anything's possible.
It's one of those shows
Yes.
which I just love so much. It is so simple, and yet it gives me so much to talk about. It gives me so much to have a conversation with my friends. And it's a kids show, but it has so much to teach you, and I just love that. And it was the same with all of these shows, all of these stories, which would give me something to talk about. And now it's like, okay, if you're going to add representation, where is my representation? I'm also a minority. I'm a part of the minority called the intelligent. Where is my representation? All I see is dumb people on the screen.
You're a successful minority, so you don't count.
Oh,
Okay, you got to be maligned. Like in America, that's another weird thing. This bakery in like California got in trouble because they had a anti-racist bake sale where they charged, get this, and it turned out to be the most racist thing ever. They were charging Asians, right? So for whoever an Asian is, right? Like this gigantic like freaking continent with all these different types of people on it. Asians had to pay $1.50 for a cookie. White people $1, black people 50 cents. And so the black people going up to it were like, "What? No, why? Are you trying to poison us? Is this a trick?" So they thought it was a trick. Why are you trying to sell us this for so cheap? You know, the white people were just not even going close to that place. And then the Asians were like screaming at them, right? You had like an Indian dude, a Chinese dude. They were just like, because that's absurd. Um, and so this whole mentality has created so much racism in America. It's just people don't think there's another toxic idea floating around that the only thing that can be racist if it's against an African American. They've sort of redefined racism. So we had a wave of anti-China sentiment in America during
during
COVID,
during the bug, yeah, the bug.
and I was sort of concerned because at my school we have a lot of Vietnamese immigrants that are great, like they're great kids. We also have a lot of Trump supporters, so I was like legitimately concerned, like, oh, this might not go well. And luckily, I guess I doubted some students at my high school, but no, they did well. But I was concerned because there was more happening in California, which I think is where this problem exists between the contention between the middle class, minority, Asians, sort of Asian immigrant families. But these kids that are being discriminated against are born in America. If you send them to India, they would have no idea what to do. You know, um, I'm, and then they're pitting them against these very white liberal people that say, well, we're not racist, but you can't come in, Asian people. It's like, whoa,
Any
so
sentence that has "I'm not racist," but
right. It's such a weird time. Um,
I think like if you point to an American, like an average American from California who's not a teacher, who's not into academia, and ask them to differentiate between a Vietnamese, somebody from Laos, somebody from Cambodia, somebody from India, Mongolia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bhutan, Bangladesh, China, Sri Lanka, Nepal, explaining these countries to an American is the equivalent of explaining the LGBTQIA plus to an Indian. Like I think that's a fair comparison because
yes.
like okay, there are more of these? No. Bunch all of them together and say them, they them. Like
Yeah.
Asian.
Um, it's well, yeah. I think I said this last time. The how like our government classifies everyone from Asia as the Asian Pacific Islander. So they group not only all Asians together, but also every Samoan. And there's a large amount of every Polynesian. In America, we tend to call them Samoans because American Samoa. Um, so there's a lot of Polynesians in America. I grew up with some, but so they're lumping all these gigantic groups of people together, and then they're like, oh, these groups are too successful. It's like, well, what part of that Asian group? And if you include Pacific Islanders, they're not as successful as Chinese immigrants or Indian immigrants. They're very athletic and they do sports very well. Like they're sort of almost falling into the same African American like issues that African Americans have dealt with outside of like historic slavery and historic like awful racism. Um, but compared to you can't really put them in the same category as the Chinese and Indian immigrants. Like they're just so different. Their histories are different. How they came here has been different. But that's what academia in America and our government does. So again, it's absurd.
So I thought like we did so much of IT work that they just nicknamed us API. Like these guys are the API guys.
So, well, I guess that's almost a tell too, like how you can tell if someone's stupid, right? If they say something like that. And like universities in California, a lot of them I don't consider very like intellect. Like they're smart. It's just this type of stuff they're usually doing for some other nefarious reason. It's just so silly. Um, and I think it makes us look bad. I think it really does. Um, like we should be celebrating these people that came here and work hard, not like trying to pass laws to punish them. Like it's so weird to me to try to do that. Like the law would be like you know college admission standards because that's the issue. They tend to be the most accepted people into like the highest scores to get into universities. Um, and so that's what created that whole perception of they're doing the best.
Yeah, and I think it is because their entire life depends on it. That person spent every single time that their
Yes.
family had. Some of their loved ones died on the way to that, like in that desert,
Yeah.
to reach that place, because that place had hope, that they had faith in the systems of that place. And for them it's a matter of life and death. If they don't get into a public funded university, they have nothing else to do. And even when they do get in, it's not like all of their struggles are over. That is the beginning of a new struggle for them on academic level, not just to sit around a bunch of privileged people who have millions in fortune, and then there is you who came here in nothing but shorts and slippers, and now you're just sitting on that same table with the same people because of your intellectual capability, because of your academic ability. So that playing field, that equality of opportunity that America gives, and for that hope. And I think a lot of people discredit that. They think, oh, we are immigrants, so they are coming here and taking everything for free. That person has done more struggle than your entire life just to reach that place, and now his life is beginning. He's starting from zero.
Yeah, it's the hidden racism of Democrats. Like I seriously, it's I've been a Democrat my whole life. but I was born into it. So it's not like it's almost like a family thing at this point. Like you're not, it's not like I have a, if I was to ever go to the other side, it'd be so much just drama because we, ever since 1828, when the Democratic Party really got started under Andrew Jackson, and that's when a lot of Southerners got the right to vote. A lot of families just in the South just latched their wagons up to the Democratic Party, and a lot of people during the Civil Rights Movement went to Republicans, and for other reasons too. It's just I'm from one of those like families that just no matter what,
So,
those Republicans burned down Georgia, ooh, in the Civil War. So
so
they're like, yeah,
for somebody in the South, what is more fluid, your political party or your gender? What is easier to change?
um, oh, the South is your political party. Believe it or not, like so, like the actual mainstream thing to do is you can just switch between Trump and the Democrats. Like vote Democrats if you want more services and this or that, or you want Social Security to stick around. Which Trump is getting smart by taking a lot of those issues that pull people away from the Republicans and just doing whatever he wants and saying whatever he wants and saying, "Oh no, we're not going to cut anything. We're going to spend more money,"
So
and just steal their platform.
it's not Republicans that people are fond of. It's Trump. It's not
It is
Republicans.
Trump.
It's Trump. Okay.
They hate Republicans. They also hate Democrats. It's a very unique thing in America right now that, oh man, it feels like I can just talk forever about this. Um, so they really like they hate Mitt Romney. They hate um, any Republican that's not a Trump Republican. They call them rhinos, Republican in name only. Um, and they're like everyone thinks they're all about abortion. They're not really not. Um, like Trump is not against abortion. Now he did some things to get Roe v. Wade overturned. That was for his ego, I think, because I'm pretty sure he's probably had abortions in his life, right? Like with women and throughout his life, as you know, I'm
he,
sure.
I think he is the most innocent, most honest person. He just slept with a porn star, just gave her some money, just employment to people who are in the porn industry. He was friends with some guy named some Jeffrey, some Epri Jeffrey, I don't remember much. I'm from India. Some guy, some best friends with some dude. He was the most innocent man I've
So
ever seen. Very honest.
like there are the QAnon types that like would actually say agree with you on that, by the way. But the majority of the Trump voters are, would catch on to that and they know what this is. They've just gotten so mad at both parties or the Democrats or someone that they've just said, I'm going to throw this nuclear bomb in the White House to say, despite all these people that bail out banks but not homeowners. Um, it's it's populism. Um, and that's one reason I think he's so hated because populists are always hated by the establishment in America. I tend to like populists. Trump is such a weird one, though. Um, and he's willing to sacrifice. Well, you know what? He's very good at finding the middle in America. Like the mid, he doesn't like to take too extreme of a stance. Like DeSantis ruined himself by going really hardcore right. Like I don't think he'd even win presidency if he was a nominee at this point, because of his abortion ban in Florida that's backfired on him. All of these school changes. Like I can't. Here's a weird thing happening in Florida. Like all these name change and pronouns are now illegal in Florida. So despite what I think about all that stuff, I don't like the government telling me you can't say this kid's nickname. I really like to so let us handle all that stuff, but the Republicans inherently don't trust a lot of teachers, which for sometimes that's warranted, but we're not having a lot of those problems on TikTok that's happening in California. If anything, it's the opposite with really right wing teachers in Florida. Um, but um, so if a kid says, let's say I have a girl named Samantha, and she's like, I go by Sam, I have to give her a form and say, go home to your parents, have them say your nickname is Sam, and sign it and then bring it to our principal to approve, not our secretary, not me, the head guy who then has to send it to the board. It's like, whoa, this is like pretty authoritarian here for a nickname for Sam.
I can call the president Dick, but I can't call my student by her name.
Oh yeah, it's like last year a teacher like in a school close to me got fired for showing a Disney movie. A Strange World, I think one of the new ones that had like a gay character in it. And just because I like to push the envelope, I showed an R-rated horror movie, The Shining, The Shining,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
just edited out the naked monster, right? I forgot how much cussing it had in it because I always watched the TV version. When I played the Amazon Prime version, which is like F this, F that, I'm like, oh Lord, oh no. I got commended for showing it. Oh, that's such an intellectual activity. Good job. It's like, wow. If a teacher, when I was growing up, showed that, oh, they would have gotten huge trouble. Our district policy, I won't even start talking about that because who knows who will see this. But
I mean, like, this is the same stance that Jordan Peterson took. I mean, it's fine if it is between students. If students are demanding something that, hey, call me he, and the teacher is like, okay, maybe I will, maybe I won't. Why is the government getting involved if the students are saying, okay, you have to call me he, and then the government is saying, no, you can't call him he? What am I supposed to? What am I supposed to call him? Doofus? What do you want?
They would be fine with doofus.
What do you want?
The government.
What do you want the U.S. high schools to become like India? Do you want them to call them by their grade, by their academic numbers? Like I was 92 because I got 92%. Do you want that?
Oh, that's right. I remember you telling me that.
Like
that's so wild still to me. Yeah, I'm hoping it's just a moment. Like it just seems to be a really weird moment. Um, like both sides seem to have gone crazy, both political sides, and both candidates for the 24 presidential election could be running from jail for president. Like Biden could be in jail for corruption through Ukraine, and Trump, he just got indicted for with RICO charges by mafia charges. So rule against running for president. We've had some, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, it just seems like a lot of political action. Is my net causing any issues? Is it my internet?
It's a little bit laggy, or is it me?
I'll just check. I can switch Wi-Fi. No issues. Okay. Let me know how is it right now.
Good.
Better? Okay. Yeah. Luckily, I have two Wi-Fi's here, so if either one.
That is very lucky. Yeah, that's very lucky.
I am in this new place right now. It's a great place.
That's right. I'm glad it's working out.
Yeah.
So, switching topics real quick. That article that you sent earlier in the week,
yeah,
was real interesting. Like with what that guy was saying about caste in America. That's something that's a whole new issue that no one, probably outside that guy and Indian immigrants, think about. Like I never like. I know I've thought may have mentioned it, but like just like the idea that someone's caste can be held against them in America is very un-American.
Yeah, I think when people migrate to new places, at first they will follow the law of the land, like lex loci. But when you have a huge chunk of population, eventually, this is why we have to be very careful with immigration laws, and that is why I think Canada is suffering, because if you fail to understand the community specific issues of a particular racial or ethnic group, uh, you'll be ignorant to their problems, and no matter how much your laws are being written, if they're not being executed by the citizen, uh, you can't really enforce it. How many citizens will you put a gun to? You can't enforce your laws unless the majority of the people uh, agree with those laws.
So I actually think this is gonna. I don't know. I could be completely wrong in this, where the Indian community just it'll always probably be a thing. Like there's still a thing amongst Southern whites against one another, like between the plantation class, the merchant class, and the non um, and like the very poor white farmers that really struggled underneath slavery, who were like the majority part of the population. Um, that's where the term white trash comes from, right? Like the plantation owners used to call those people white trash. So that's still somewhat of a thing. And that's how I can see maybe the caste system staying around. But another way I saw that video was that guy pretty much saying, it's open season, boys, let's make some money. Because if you can prove, like, let's say someone is discriminated against in a job, and like if there's an Indian manager at Walmart and he discriminates an Indian person of a lower class,
Yeah.
if that lower class person can somehow prove that, oh my God, Walmart would be settling so quick out of fear they would lose hundreds of millions of dollars and get shut down by the labor department. Um, so I think any financial discrimination from that will be taken care of. The social impact probably will always be a thing.
There is a
That's my
law in
prediction.
India which is known as the SC/ST Act, which means Scheduled Caste slash Scheduled Tribes Act. And according to that, if I discriminate against someone, or I verbally harass or uh, verbally cause distress to somebody of a community which is considered minority community under Schedule 6 of the Indian Constitution. So, who is a minority and who isn't a minority is decided by Schedule 6 of the Constitution. So, if I say something that is demeaning to them, they can file a case against me and I'll be arrested. And it's a serious offense in India to inflict caste-based harm on somebody else. But still, yes, this act has been misused, yes. But in a lot of elite universities, which are public-run universities, a lot of students from scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, and marginalized communities have committed suicide uh, because of uh, their claims that they said that they were discriminated against based on their race, sorry, based on their caste. So they claim that they were discriminated against based on their caste, and the universities have investigated. Some people find it to be true, some don't. I don't know who to agree with, but the issue of caste-based discrimination extends even to academia, which is supposed to be the most forward-looking, ahead-looking, liberal kind of dystopia, whatever you want to call that. And it's interesting how there are laws which are specifically designed to protect these marginalized group of people, and at the same time, people of that community are committing suicide because they said, "Oh, I was being harassed based on my caste."
Mm. Um, I think, yeah, that's tough. Um, I think for any of those like allegations, you should give it some merit, investigate it. Um, some people do lie, but with that type of stuff, with a long history, it's just
It becomes very
I
difficult
don't know.
to,
That's sad, but
yeah, like it's very difficult to try someone for that, because if it's not just one person, it's often a group. It's never one person. It
it's like
cannot
it's a
possibly be.
society thing.
It cannot be one person. If I come to a US high school and there are 20 people sitting on that table of every community, and we are just having conversation, and just one guy out of nowhere starts racially commenting on me uh, as an Indian, I don't think the other 19 will sit around like, well, what the hell, dude? Like, take a walk.
Yeah, no, that
It won't happen. one person
Yeah,
will not interfere in that.
um I mean, again, it all depends on the situation, and but that would not even like um you know Trump Republicans, they wouldn't put up with any of that.
Exactly. So
So it's sort of wild. I mean, I guess it's similar to how some Americans view the homeless in America. Um,
uh,
that
it's very fascinating because now recently there was some issue in one of the Indian, I think, universities or some restaurant where it said vegetarians only, or like no non-veg food allowed. There were just different sections uh, inside university campus for vegetarian mess food and non-vegetarian mess food, and students were outraged. Students were like crazy about it. How can you do this?
interesting.
So vegetarians in India consider themselves to be pure because they are not consuming animal meat and eggs and whatnot.
American vegans feel the same way about
So
themselves.
like there's that
We are pure. You're not.
moral high ground, and so I don't know what was the exact context of it, but people were furious that this discrimination is happening, and the other was like, okay, so what? Like there is an entire, like, it's a different section. Just go ahead and eat there. What's the big deal?
That, that's interesting. That's but I could see that also happening somewhere at an American university, like like they're having African American only dances right now at some universities where they're just holding it for like the four African American students at a small university or something, and it's so weird because that's very racist, and they view it as anti-racist to have a segregated dance.
Yeah, whenever you're giving any sort of affirmative action, make sure to give it in a way that feels inclusive and not exclusive. Like if it's having the opposite effect, it becomes very easy for the crazy people to convince the majority that any form of affirmative action, if not implemented properly, becomes a very easy target for the crazy people to convince the masses that this is a form of appeasement. And crazy
Yes.
people are very successful at making sure that the economically disadvantaged people of the ethnic majority uh, are convinced that the economically affluent people of the ethnic minority are being appeased by the government. Like by setting the examples of some of the financially good people in the minority, you can convince the financially disadvantaged majority base uh, that, oh, see, the government is appeasing these people who own Mercedes and BMWs are being given
Yeah.
reservations.
Yeah. Sort of grifting um, to get like I guess reputation or clout or money. That's a definite thing in America um, between different groups. Um, but I'm sure different dynamics in India. It's fascinating though. So just one last question, then I gotta wrap it up and prepare for tomorrow.
Definitely, definitely.
Always good talking to you, buddy.
Great.
Um, so is Friendship Day a big deal in India?
It is celebrated. Yes, we have friendship bands and friendship rings. Not
Interesting.
not huge, but yeah, it's a thing in India. Yeah.
So it's like a thing
We celebrate
because
almost all American festivals except St. Patrick's, Irish Day, and 4th of July. Except these three, we celebrate almost all American holidays: Easter, Christmas, all of them.
so like right now in America, I think Friendship Day has sort of gone by the wayside a little bit. It's interesting. Like I was asking, most of my students don't know what it is, um, and I don't know like how that or why that happened. Maybe it's a something it'll probably catch fire again at some point. Um, but at the same time that has happened, we have something called the friendship recession going on in America, where
Okay.
basically like most men don't have any friends. Like it's and there's a lot of isolation at the moment. They're calling it the loneliness epidemic. It's another thing the media has claim this time period as.
One more
So
epidemic. Oh god.
yeah, it's like some narrative they're trying to spin, but they are pulling the data from accurate sources because I think it has more to do with cell phones
Hmm.
and communication, sort of destroying some community, like some community groups went online instead of maybe meeting in person. But they're like there's about 30% of males in America aren't working right now. Like a lot of people aren't talking about this. Um,
That's
and
huge.
this is like Great Depression numbers, but it's not because they can't find work. We have a worker shortage in America at the moment, um, and a teacher shortage, a bus driver shortage. We have like a shortage of jobs that haven't been respected as they should, and people won't go to jobs they don't. They can deal with whatever the pay is. It's a status prestige thing, right? Um, the teachers will bounce back. We already sort of have. But like in Kentucky today, Kentucky or Tennessee, there was a district that because they have so few bus drivers, they hired a Silicon Valley company to use AI to recreate their bus routes to make it more efficient so they need less drivers. And they failed so bad that parents freaked out because they didn't know where their kids were. Some kids didn't get home till 10 p.m. when school ended at 2
Oh.
p.m. Buses were dropping kids off in the middle of like a bad area of town. They couldn't track where any of the kids were. The bus drivers got lost. Like they had to do searches with cops to go find these kids. Um, so they hired this company instead of just upping the pay of a bus driver. Anyways, let me go. I just wanted to throw that in. I'll send you the article. It's an interesting story. So um, it seems that a lot of these males right now are choosing not to work and are just sort of doing drugs and sort of getting high all day. That's probably a third of them. Another third could be felons. Like if you go to jail on a felony, which is a serious charge, um, it's hard to find work when you get out. That's something we need to fix. And the other third could be retired because that's also including some retired people. But there's a big chunk that are completely able-bodied. Some of them are even college educated, which is even more wild. That are just sort of choosing to do, as my mom would say, do dope and play video games. And it's sort of it's real fascinating. Um, and I think there's like a lot of depressed people in America at the moment. Um, but we've also gone through these time periods in the past, and we've just bounced back out of them out of nowhere, either through religion or war. So watch out.
Nobody discover oil. No more cooking oil. No oil.
um, we've had like three great awakenings, they call them, where pre they call it like it's a thing. Um, like when my mom was growing up around like the 50s and 60s in Florida, they had hell preachers. And you would go to these tents, like revival tents, and the preacher would just scream at you that you're going to hell the entire for an hour. So that was one movement. So something like that will come, some crazy thing like that will come around, and people will get hope again. But yeah,
Doesn't that already exist? We call it the Alex Jones show in India.
ooh, maybe you could. Oh, that's actually
exactly,
it's like kind of scary if someone like that gets religious like power behind them.
it's exactly
Um,
the same thing.
right. So I guess my whole point is, um, I'm glad Friendship Day is going well in India. America needs to get a little bit stronger, but I am glad I'm your friend, Malay.
I'm
All
so
right.
glad you're my teacher.
Yeah. So I always enjoy these talks. I got to get ready
Definitely,
um,
definitely.
to teach tomorrow. Um,
What time
but
is it over there?
it's 9:38.
of the night.
Yeah, so it's night. I try to make a gloomy atmosphere to be cool.
Okay.
But yeah, it's 9:38. And I get up real early in the morning, but
And what's the
I
school
always
timing? They're like
so the school starts at 7 a.m. So we get a real early start.
way too early.
It's like they're changing it. It's been like that forever, and it all has to do with work and after school activities and buses, and parents' jobs. It's a complex thing. So they sort of just put it on the older kids to say, "Hey, you're the ones that have to wake up early. Just deal with it." But it does affect some things. Um, but anyways, yeah, so I'm teaching psychology and sociology. So
Very
it's
very
been
left
fun
leaning
so far.
subjects.
Well, no one wanted to teach sociology. Like the
Yeah.
guy that did teach it, like completely said no. And like it was sort of like his student, like all of his students got mad at him because he's a good teacher. And but I don't blame him either.
Why risk?
I
Nobody
just
will risk
I'll
their
be
job.
fine. Huh?
Nobody wants to risk their job in these times.
Yeah, and I think I have, and I could be arrogant in saying this and wrong, but I think I have enough clout to be fine unless I say something so outrageous. But like, I have helped the district enough and have also fought them enough in HR that they probably just don't want to deal with that. Um, you know,
And you're a
but
great teacher. I mean, like just having these conversations with you, it's delightful. So I think most of the students love you anyway. Not going to
oh,
be
I
an issue.
appreciate that. But I do like a good fight, so maybe that's why I'm doing it too. Because I want them to.
Like engage
Anyways,
intellectually. That's how you get them to engage intellectually, right?
in all reality, unless it hits the news, they won't care. Like they will only care if the government cares, and the government will only care if DeSantis thinks that'll get them votes. So somehow I'm tied all the way to his presidential campaign at the moment. It's he's such a dweeb.
Okay,
All
so
right,
you
well,
should sleep.
um,
Great.
yeah. Have a good. Is everything going right with your school and family?
Yeah, all is great. I got a new job. Like remember, I was applying for some places. So like,
Oh, so you got what job did you get?
I am the lead of marketing, social media. I'm the lead of social media marketing at this cryptocurrency firm in India. It's
Oh,
it's going good.
nice.
Yeah, we recently launched our new coin, so we are like clocked with work. And I'm just finishing my final year of college. So I began my final year of college, and I have a decent job, good enough starting pay for somebody like me. Nice.
Oh, well, you're also in a frontier industry too, right? Like that's a cutting edge type of thing.
Yeah, UI
Really
UX.
cool.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, cryptocurrency is viewed in different ways in America at the moment, but that's because of Sam
SBF.
Bankman-Fried.
Yeah.
Yes. Ugh. But it like Bitcoin's still going strong and it'll be back.
Yep.
Um,
Thanks to
but
SBF,
that's
I think
huh?
thanks to SPF, the prices of crypto have dropped tremendously. So, an Indian with some savings left, they can probably start investing, and that is like our target audience right now. We are bringing more people online. We are urging them to have just a little bit amount, little bit, whatever you're comfortable with losing. You give that to us. We're not just a crypto company. We are also an asset management company. So we will take care of the investments for you, and then we'll take a cut of the return that you get on it. So we'll make profit only if you make profit. We'll take a cut of it.
That's smart to put that into assets. That's interesting. So I'm hoping that goes great. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do and talking about it in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah. I have some great stories already. It's been 1 week, but one crazy week. So whenever we talk next, I'll tell you a lot of stories from the workplace.
All right, yeah. So that'll be the next conversation. It'll be cryptocurrency and AI.
Yeah, in India. Let's see.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to talking to you again, bud.
Thank you, sir. So same here. We'll talk definitely.
All right. Well, have a great day.
Have a great night's sleep, sir. Thank you.
I'm gonna try my best.
Thank
It's
you so
always
much.
a pleasure talking to you, and
Same.
have a good night or good day.
Have a great day, sir. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, sir.